What's up guys, today we are going to be doing a raw B-roll style video and I'm going to show you how to capture cinematic footage on your mobile phone. We're going to be using an iPhone 11 Pro. I got a couple of really good tips for you guys, and towards the end of the video I'm actually going to put together an edit which you're going to see us do in the studio, and we're going to show you the end result that we were able to capture today. First things first, we're going to shoot head out here and get the few shots that we need for our little cinematic scene, and then we're going to head back to the studio and I'll show you guys the editing side of what it takes to get the most cinematic footage you can out of one of these smartphones. We are just going to be focusing on getting some nice basic shots to use as a demonstration. We're not going to be creating like epic cinematic scene necessarily. We're just getting these ones as a demonstration. The first thing that I want to talk about is getting nice and smooth, stable shots, because having a cinematic video, unless you want for a specific reason to have like shaky and frantic footage, is going to look best when you can get really nice smooth movements. And you can do that by using one of these, a gimbal. These are relatively inexpensive, especially for mobile phones. Otherwise, if you can't get your hands on one of these, you can just do your best to get really nice smooth shots with your handheld shots, and just kind of don't take too many steps, really tuck in those elbows and work on a couple different techniques that you can use to get like really smooth shots. Actually, I have a video about shooting handheld and you can check it out up here. Our first shot, we're just going to be getting Hannah riding down the pathway here. I'm going to keep my shot quite nice and big, get a nice establishing shot. Let's do the same shot, but looking back on Hannah into the light right now, because something about making your footage look cinematic that is really important is the lighting. So if you guys notice, we've got some really nice low sun right now. The problem is if you guys have some really harsh light, you are going to struggle to get nice even lighting on your subject, and you're also going to be getting blown out highlights in the background, which is a dead giveaway of like some mobile footage, and it even looks bad on some really nice cameras if you have that harsh light and when the sun is too high in the sky. So right now you can see that it's really nice and soft. We got it low, we got some golden light coming in, and we're going to shoot back onto Hannah like this and get that golden light in the background. It's going to make it look really nice and cinematic. The next thing that I think is super important is to incorporate movement into your shots. If you guys have locked off shots like this, kind of just holding it how the average person would do with their phone, it doesn't look nearly as nice as if you have some sort of movement, even if it's simple, whether that's a slide going sideways like that or a punch in and out. You can incorporate any sort of movement into your shot, but just having that instead of that lock off shot is going to add much more of a cinematic feel to those shots. Something to note about when you are using movement is, if you can and your phone gives you the option, I like to shoot in a slightly higher frame rate so that when all that movement is happening, I can slow it down. It's going to give that smooth feeling, and that's also going to help with those handheld shots if you guys are shooting handheld. So we're going to shoot that right now. We're going to get some close-ups and little details of the bicycle here, and I'm shooting at 1080 at 60 frames per second so I can get half speed. I also have the ability to switch over into the slow mode feature, which is going to shoot in 120 frames per second, and I'll do that for any key moments that I feel like there's going to be exaggerated movement that I want to put some sort of emphasis onto. So let's get those close-ups of these shots and we can see how they look. Something we want to look out for is just getting a nice even exposure between all of our shots. So I'm going to get Hannah to ride into the shot here. If you guys are ever having trouble with exposure, you can just tap on your screen onto your subject and you can make sure that that part is going to be exposed correctly if you have kind of a backlit situation or something like this. For our next shot, we're going to get Hannah entering into frame here, following her out, and we're going to end up on those rocks there. Something else that's super useful if you guys have a phone that has different lenses, Like on this one, I have the regular one, and then I have a super wide, and I also have a telephoto one. So I can swap between those just to make my scene a little bit more dynamic. I can have some sort of wide establishing shot and then a slightly more zoomed in one. A lot of phones don't always allow this. Some of you guys only have two. And if you really want to get into it, you can actually get little lens adapters that mount onto the front of your phone, giving you like a wider lens or that more telephoto lens. Relatively cheap, and you just clip them on and you can change up your shot. So for this one, I'm going to be a little bit more zoomed in, as I just want to get a nice detail shot of Hannah kind of arriving here and putting her bike kickstand down before she walks out onto the rocks. Something super important is just taking a little bit of time to think of good composition, putting in those couple of extra seconds just to work out your shot and how it might be visually pleasing is going to make a huge impact when you guys are trying to edit that footage and get the best cinematic looking footage that you can. So take a couple of extra seconds to just work out that composition, whether it's the rule of thirds, some nice leading lines. We can frame up your shot, maybe introduce some foreground. What we're going to do for this one to demonstrate our composition is we're just going to frame up Hannah here in between these handlebars. And as she's walking away into the distance, we're going to have it framed nicely. That gives us some foreground, and it will put some more depth into our shot by having that extra layer. And now all of a sudden we have three planes, and it's going to look really nice. For this next shot, I'm going to get a nice low shot here. Changing perspectives helps so much with composition, and just by swapping out your angle, getting really nice and low, it creates an interesting and unique look at this scene that could be like relatively boring and normal if we were just at eye level. So I'm going to get really down low here, and I'm going to get Hannah just to walk into the frame, stopping at the end, playing a little bit into our story of Hannah just arriving here. And then I'm going to do one shot where I just dip it down, which we could potentially use for our ending as well. We're going to get one more shot of Hannah just being on the edge from here, keeping our composition nice. We can keep her on the back third. That's going to give us a nice shot of her just standing there. We can get some of the waves crashing on our other third and keep our shot nice and balanced like that. I'm going to get one nice cutaway shot of the waves crashing on here that I can just use between any of my other shots. If they don't cut next to each other that well, I can have one of these shots to insert there. So let's try to get a shot of these waves, super slippery rocks. I can switch over onto my zoomed lens. And while I'm here, I'm gonna get one this way. So once we're back in studio and we've dumped our footage, there are a few more things that we can do just to make our video look more cinematic. I've thrown it over here into Premiere. One of the first things I like to do once I've sort of cut and placed everything is I like to just make sure that my footage is stable. If you didn't have a gimbal or some of your footage was a little bit shaky, now is the time that you can try and save that by using something like warp stabilizer. Keep in mind it doesn't always work and sometimes makes a wobbly effect on your video. All you gotta do is head over to effects, search warp, and you can drop that right onto one of your clips. It's gonna start analyzing. I don't need to do that because we used the gimbal, but if you guys were handheld and it was a bit shaky, you can try warp stabilizer. The next thing that I would like to start doing is to start working on my color grade. And this is where you guys can really start to get creative, build it into your own personal little style, put your own flavor, your own spin on it. And the way I like to do my color grade is I like to add an adjustment layer like this. So I can do one color grade that's gonna apply to all of my clips. Keep in mind, you might also want to color correct your clips by just going through them individually, making sure your exposure is correct, the white balance is the same with each one of your clips, and then once that's done, we can come here to our color grade. For my color grade, all of my videos that you guys see on this channel are color graded with one of my LUTs that I have available in my store, and they are down in the description. They're actually 25% off right now, and if you guys want to go and check them out, they're going to be down there. The one I like to use is this cine skin. You can see as I throw it on, it immediately changes the whole thing. Now, for mobile footage, it is generally quite saturated and contrasty already. So we don't want to go too crazy. I'm going to turn this intensity way down, keep it somewhere around there, like 30. I can just skip through and check, maybe check how the difference is, and I can toggle it on and off. Looking pretty good. Some of the other things I might want to do is just warm this up a little bit because there was quite a lot of clouds that day and I want it to feel a little bit warmer. You can see how blue everything in the sky is. I can just warm that up with our white balance a little bit. Maybe take down our highlights a little bit so we don't have too much of that blown out sky. And we can put our shadows up and take our contrast down. This is going to be more specific to how your footage looks depending on the settings you were using and what phone you actually filmed it in. This is just what looks nice for this particular phone and these particular conditions. You can see in here it's starting to look much more like a sunrise, sunset, golden light. You can see without our color grade, it's a lot bluer, a lot flatter, and not nearly as nice. Once we're done with that, you can take it a little bit further. These things are gonna be subjective, and sometimes people are not gonna wanna use these for creating their cinematic videos. But the first one is these black bars. So you guys have seen these before, but basically this just mimics a wider frame. Mostly your phone is gonna be filming in 16:9. This is going to replicate something like 21:9, which some cinema cameras can film in, and some movies that you guys are going to be watching are in this aspect ratio. So you can see it does add that cinematic feeling. It can often make it appear more professional, but you also might not want to use it because in reality you're actually losing data here. You're losing resolution by chopping it off with those black bars because you didn't actually film it in anamorphic or a true wide aspect ratio. But it does look cool. A lot of people like it. If you guys want it, you can throw it on there. If you're wondering how to do this, there's a few different ways. I think the easiest way is probably just to jump over onto Google and search for something like 21:9 cine bars PNG. If you get a PNG, it's going to be clear. Otherwise, you can just crop it off and decide how big you want your bars to be. The next thing we're going to talk about is just adding a few things like overlays. Now, these you also have to be careful with, but they can add a nice flair to your videos. For something like this, I could add one of these overlays just to make it look a little more vibey. We're gonna have this overlay and it's gonna play over that footage. Something to look out for this, with this sun flare kind of style overlay, make sure that it's coming from the same direction where your sun is. Otherwise, it's just not gonna really make sense. And for a lot of these, where they look like this, you need to get rid of all the black by changing the blending mode to screen. If you guys are wondering where you might want to get these from, you can get them from stock websites online, something like Storyblocks. This video is not sponsored by Storyblocks, but they are an amazing place if you guys want to get any sort of overlays or anything like that. You can see it'll have that subtle overlay over there. So check it out. Here's a side by side of what we had before and after. And you can see with these different clips, there really is a noticeable difference with that color grade, those bars, it being in slow motion. And to think if we didn't apply the tips we were talking about when we were filming this, it would be even further from each other. So I think this can really make a huge difference. Now that we've seen how we do it, let's take a look at what we're actually able to capture and what it looks like once you've edited it with these tricks. We also added some music, some sound effects, and made it look really nice. So let's have a watch. That's gonna be it. I hope you guys thought that video was cool. We had a lot of fun making this video today, and I hope for all you mobile shooters, this is gonna help you guys make your footage just look that little more cinematic. With all that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in